So I'm Todd Medema, the founder of Makerhouse, which is an intentional community for makers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In the workshop itself, we have robotics, electronics, woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing, laser cutting, CNC machining, blacksmithing, and then we have a bunch of people who are musicians, who love to cook
Mm,
and bake, who love to sew and do cosplay. If there's something that you want to do more of, make it easier to do. And I enjoy making, so it's
mm.
like the easiest way to make more is to like literally like live with your tools. There was one iteration in a apartment where someone's bedroom was turned into a wood shop, and like we covered their bed with a plastic sheet when we were cutting wood, and a custom built house with its own dedicated 1,000 square foot
Mm.
workshop. This sort of community is especially important in this day and age when loneliness and isolation and disconnectedness is more rampant than ever. The ecological and economic footprint of members of the community is like 1/10 of the American average. So, success.
So yeah, why don't we start with just having you describe what is Makerhouse and what was your vision, is your vision for Makerhouse?
Yeah. So, I'm Todd Medema, the founder of Makerhouse, which is an intentional community for makers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'd say this started maybe like 10 years ago back in college when I just really enjoyed living with friends and having access to makery tools where I lived. Uh, there's this kind of thought process of make the, if there's something that you want to do more of, make it easier to do. And I enjoy making. So it's
Mm,
like the easiest way to make more is to like literally like live with your tools. Um, and so we went through many iterations. There was one iteration in an apartment where someone's bedroom was turned into a wood shop, and like we covered their bed with a plastic sheet when we were cutting wood. And
yeah.
now it's like actually like a custom built house with its own dedicated 1,000 square foot
Mm,
workshop. And yeah, so that's really my vision, is just kind of scaling up this idea of like live with friends, live with community, and live with your hobbies and your passions and your tools. Um, and I think it's especially this sort of community is especially important in this day and age when loneliness and isolation and disconnectedness is more rampant than ever.
yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, man. It's like I've been researching a lot with like generational cycles, and it is funny because I feel like millennials, kind of this, age range, is full of people who are like, let's connect, let's unite, let's get things going the way they should be. And
Yeah.
I think my group really resonates with that as well. That's sick. So you built the 1,000 foot 1,000 square foot like workshop. Did you build any other structures with
Yeah, I guess
there?
I personally did not lift a finger besides,
Okay.
pen and typing, and some after the fact modification, but I hired a home builder. So it's built
Hmm.
as a kind of like traditional family home, with 5 bedrooms, uh, but with a lot of kind of improvements that make it better for a community of adults. So like very good soundproofing, a gigantic
Hmm.
kitchen with two cooktops, just like a house, but like one that supports many independent people.
Got it. And what was that process like at the beginning? Was it like, did you have six or so people at the beginning, or was it kind of just you starting out?
I had I was living with 4 people at the time, so it's kind of like, okay, we need to get more people, but it was a very interesting thought process because I was really excited about this idea of like a cooperative, and like maybe we
Hmm.
all buy like a quarter of the cost of the house.
Hmm.
And then it turns out that understandably, like a lot of people are not in the right financial place to put down that much money.
Yeah.
And so, I talked with the people that wanted to come, like, how do we structure this? And, ultimately what we decided was like, I would own the house as like kind of a typical homeowner and,
Mm.
rent it to them. But, since the goal was not to make boatloads of money and like be a landlord, I just was basically like, okay, like I will calculate out the cost of ownership and like we'll split that, but there's no like profit on top.
Mm. Okay. Okay, so it's kind of more, how would you, so the cost of ownership, so when people are like paying their rent, are they paying into something that they'll get back later on, or is that more
No,
just splitting the
it's
cost each month?
yeah, they just cover like the operational cost and like a little bit extra for like large maintenance things.
Hmm.
The rough rule of thumb I've heard for home ownership is like set aside 1% of the home's value every year for maintenance. Some
Hmm.
years you'll underspend, and then other years you'll have a roof failure or some like huge expense. So
Yeah,
yeah, I just kind of like researched what to expect for home ownership costs and extrapolated that.
got it. So you started in 2014, correct, with this project?
Yeah, that's when
Yeah.
the idea really started, and then the
Mm.
house itself finished construction in 2021.
Dang. Okay. So when did the construction start?
2019. Well,
Okay.
okay. I started talking with builders and architects in 2019, and then they actually so it's a modular house that was built in a factory. So very cool
Ah.
construction process that I could nerd out about for a long time. But timing wise, they ordered all of the parts to the factory like 2 weeks before COVID hit. And so it's just
Oh
kind of this
yeah,
crazy, like,
yeah.
well, all the parts are coming, but like we can't work on it. The factory's shut down. And then, normally like you could go into the factory and see the whole process, but
Mhm.
then they ended up building it in quarantine, which was, nice of them. Like the workers came in and did their work, but like I didn't get to see it until they like literally plopped it on site.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So just whoa, that's what it is. How did you find out about, you said it's like a modular home. What
Yeah.
did you go to find that?
So one of my secondary goals with this, besides the community itself, was to build a house that was very like energy efficient.
Hmm.
And so I did a lot of research. I actually like took a couple of like college classes in architecture and construction, um, and this technique came up as kind of the new thing. And I mean, I can confirm like it was built to a very high standard. And yeah, it's extremely energy efficient. Our like energy consumption per square foot is, I'd say, like half of that of the typical home.
Wow.
And then you extrapolate that to like there being 6 people in it, and like the ecological and economic footprint of members of the community is, I think, like 1/10 of the American average. So success.
Jeez. Wow. Well done. That's sick. And so I saw that you're 100% solar, right? Yeah.
It's like 80% solar.
Okay.
To get that last 20%, you basically have to like double everything. So,
Uh,
it's kind of that balance of like green energy efficiency versus like economic costs, and
right.
80% was like the right balance.
Okay. And was that something that you DIY'd, or did you also hire that out?
I hired someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of heights. I looked at the 3-story roof and was like, no way am I hauling 100-pound
Yeah.
solar panels up that. So
Hmm. Yeah, that does sound a little daunting. Because I do want to DIY solar, but whew, 3 stories.
yeah, I mean, like Makerhouse is in a city, so our
Hmm.
only usable land was the rooftop. But
Right.
especially if you have some land, you have a lot more options. Like if you have a shed,
Yeah.
that's like a 1-story roof. That's a lot easier to deal with. Or like maybe you just build like a standalone solar thing. Or one of
Hmm.
one of the things we've actually been thinking about in expanding our solar capacity is building. I forget exactly what they're called, but they're basically like window coverings outside of your window, like little like shades for your window. And if you calculate
Hmm.
it correctly, they block the intense summer sun, but they let the lower angle winter light through. So
Hmm.
you actually save a lot on your cooling bills. And then, you could build the thing itself out of just solar panels. So you're producing energy. So that's one of our
That's
like
cool.
ideas.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you're a bunch of different creative people building different things, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
What are your different like skills and what are you all focusing on?
it's all over the place, and that's half the
Mm,
fun. We
yeah.
have in the workshop itself, we have robotics, electronics, woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing, laser cutting, CNC machining, blacksmithing, and then we have a bunch of people who are musicians who love to cook
Mm,
and bake, who love to sew and do cosplay and costume stuff. Um, and most of the stuff didn't exist when I started the house. I was like, okay, like I like woodworking, electronics, blacksmithing, like we'll have that. And then as
mhm,
people moved in, they would bring their own passions and hobbies, and it's just this amazing like melting pot. Like
mm,
it's only because a few of our housemates are into sewing that I know anything about sewing now.
right. Yeah. And is there anything that any projects that you guys have done that like, you couldn't have done without this type of setup? Kind of collaboration.
That's an interesting question because I think almost anyone is capable of almost anything if they put their mind to it.
Yeah.
Like if I really wanted to, I could set up all these tools. I could teach myself how to sew. Um, but just the reality is it's so much easier in this group setting.
Mm,
It probably would have stayed on my list for my entire lifetime and I never would have gotten to it. But like, you see someone else, they know what they're doing, they set up the tools. One day you're like, eating lunch and a little bored, like, what should I do today? And you see them like sewing
mm,
this like amazing 17th century garment, and you're just like, tell me more. And
mhm,
you just like learn through osmosis rather than having to put all this energy into like teaching yourself.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. That's cool. I love that. Um, okay, so I know you're like kind of in the city, so like it's uh it's kind of just like, very tight space, right? For six people.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, the house itself
what
is large, so like it's
okay.
totally fine living there. But it's not like
Yeah.
we like many of our members are interested in like gardening, and unfortunately, there's not like a huge yard to like really get into that.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. Um, what do you find is like the kind of decision making process amongst the group? Is there kind of like a set of rules that you guys have? Anything like that?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty lightweight. We have a very clear code of conduct that everyone has to read before joining. Uh, really, just summarized as like, don't be a dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with lots of examples so that we're all aligned on like what that means. Um, but then, like, I think how we function in a more political sense is I was really inspired by this idea of a duocracy
Mm,
of if you want to do something and it's reversible and you're willing to reverse it, just do it. You don't have to ask for permission.
mhm,
Like if you want to do something that's like non-reversible or would like be hugely obnoxious. I don't know if you want to like start a compost bin in the middle of the living room or something, then
yeah.
maybe ask permission. But if you want to like add a new tool to the workshop and like just do it. And then if someone
Yeah.
like really hates it or blocks whatever and someone complains, then then figure it out. But yeah, I've seen too many times where there's just like too much process in the way, and that just totally kills creativity. So we would just
Yeah.
really want to be like, go, do, and live.
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite mentality of our government, isn't it?
Yeah, and I spend too much time thinking about governance structures, frankly. But
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things that you can do as a small community that realistically does not scale. Like, as six people, you intimately know everyone. You're very familiar with the space. If something changes, you talk about it. Boom, quick. But if you're like
Mhm.
300 million people, inevitably someone is always
True.
going to be doing something that you don't like, and
Right.
y- like the rules exist because someone did something dumb, and now we can't do that anymore. And like it's many of the rules like frankly make sense. Like I don't want drunk drivers on the road. I don't want to be killed by a drunk driver. So like yeah, it becomes a lot more complicated with more people, which I think is
Yeah.
part of what I like about having that small community and just having that like freedom and speed within the community.
Hmm. That's great. Um, I think I read this a little bit on your site for how you deal with people who are like exiting, breaking up, anything like that. But could you walk through kind of how you deal with those things?
Yeah, thankfully, we've not had any bad situations yet, and I think that really boils down to screening people when they come in.
Yeah.
Um, one part of it is how we project ourselves to the world. Like, it's called Makerhouse. We talk about these things, so like we kind of self-select for the people who want that to begin with, and those people kind of tend to understand like, yeah, making's a bit like noisy and messy and dirty, and like,
Mm.
don't live here if you want to live in like a Zen Buddhist, minimalist place.
Yeah.
Um, there may be other intentional communities for that. That's wonderful. Find the community that fits for you. And then, when we get these applicants, we have everyone who's currently living at the house talk to them, and everyone gets a vote. And like, yeah, we've definitely downvoted people sometimes.
Hmm.
Not necessarily that they're a bad person, just not a right fit for the thing that we're building.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. And then if if something were to happen, like let's say someone gets, divorced or break up or whatever it is, they can't afford payments. I'm sure it's like different for each kind of scenario, but this is something that we have at least been wrestling with, and I know it's going to be different for us for a lot of reasons, but just so
Yeah.
we can kind of see what you guys would do.
Yeah, I mean, we have like in the code of conduct, like here's the official policy. Like if
Hmm.
a couple is living in Maker House and they go through a breakup, then like both of them have to move out because like we don't
Mm.
want to deal with the drama of like picking favorites and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
think our like official policies are kind of the safe default. Like the same with paying rent. Like if you miss paying rent for like 2 months or whatever like it is in a typical lease, like then
Mm.
we have to kick you out. um at the same time, like one of my goals is like don't be a dick and like build kindness and paying it forward. So like there's absolutely
Mm.
understanding, like if one of our members like loses a job and they're on financially tough times, like, and we like them as part of the community, like we can be more generous and supportive than the official policy, and the official policy is just there as like a safeguard. Like if someone turns out to be a dick and like never pays rent, then we can point to that and be like, no, you're out. But we try to be more human than that.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So what would you say kind of in general has been the thing that causes the biggest problems, the biggest issues in Maker House, if there is anything?
um I mean, overall I would say that it's been shockingly problem free. Like,
Wow.
um, you
Well
know,
done.
not to say that there aren't problems, but like, once you
Yeah.
take it in the context of like, this is life, these are independent adults who have their own needs and personalities. Like, I've definitely heard plenty of other situations of like real political strife, and like people can't disagree on people can't agree on like the future
Mm.
direction, and like, huge schisms, and like,
Yeah.
we haven't had that. Really, like the only thing of any real complexity has been just kind of chores and maintenance.
Yeah.
um, and like we have, I'm a bit of a software engineering nerd, and I set up like an automated chore system, and it's like based on a Google sheet with like 150 rows of like every conceivable thing that needs to be done in the house. It's a bit much,
Nice.
but it's like,
That's
you know
great.
sweeping the driveway, shoveling the snow, changing out like water filters, mowing the lawn, like every little thing, and like how often
Mm.
needs to happen, like who's trained on how to do that, and it like generates every week, like, here are your chores for the week. Um, and this is one of those interesting problems where like you have to kind of fight between your human tendencies and like what's good for the collective. Because someone will like not do their chores for a week, and it's like, okay, you had a tough week at work, and then they don't do it for 2 or 3 weeks. Like maybe on top of that, like someone in their family has health issues, and then suddenly you start getting to this point where like the community is suffering. Like the yard looks kind of disgusting because no one's taking care of it. Like maybe like the dishwasher like fails because no one was cleaning the filter, and so yeah, it's just like a tricky path to navigate. Like, yes, I know you're going through a hard time, but like it's unfair to the community if like on a chronic basis you don't do your part.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That would probably be the biggest challenge when you're in the same space as each other. Let's see. Is there like a decent amount of turnover, or has it been kind of like a consistent group since inception? Was it 2019 when people officially moved in, or
2021 January. So
oh, right.
we just passed the 4-year anniversary, and let's see, 2 of the tenants have been there since the beginning, community members, and then there's been some churn on the other. I'd say our average stay so far is like a year and a half, maybe. It'd be interesting to run the numbers on that, but yeah, we like a lot of the people who move there end up staying for a long time, but then like the main reasons people move are like we sometimes we get like graduate students and like their school program ends, or like they get a job in another place. We've also had people move out because they like buy their own home, and get to a financial position where they can do that. So I don't think we've had anyone like move out because they hated it. It's just like they moved out because like there's this new thing that they're moving towards in life.
Sweet. That's a good sign that you're doing things right. Let's see. This is an interesting question. I don't know if this would apply, but so I know that you share like resources and space, but do you also share like businesses in any way, or is that kind of all kept separate?
My kind of partner in Makerhouse and I like run a board game company together, but we started doing that long before Makerhouse. There hasn't been like specific businesses spun out of Makerhouse. I've heard of other intentional communities that are maybe like a bit more startup focused, where like that's really the intent. And I don't know, we've thought about that, but I think at least for the services that we offer and the scale that we're at, if someone really wanted to like make a business, there are other better resources available. Yeah. Like Alpha Lab, Startup Incubator, or Proto Haven, like the community makerspace. Both of those have much more space, much more resources available. And so, if someone really wanted to go down that path, like they could certainly live at Makerhouse and like participate in and enjoy that creative energy there, but then actually kind of starting that business would probably happen at one of those places.
Got it. And what board game, by the way, did you is it one or is it many, or
it's one. It's called Expedition, the role-playing game.
I gotta
We like
look
to
that
call
up.
it like a lightweight Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, dude, yes. Yes. That's sweet. I'm gonna check that out. Is there kind of like any like scheduled events or just gatherings in general that are like set up each week, each month, or whatever to facilitate like social cohesion, or anything like that?
I've seen it done a lot of different ways. So yeah, I've seen some communities that do, they'll have like weekly dinners or whatnot, and we kind of tried to do that, and participation wasn't great. Like everyone had things going on in their life, so what we've ended up doing instead is more like people organize events when they want to.
Okay.
Like a big one has unofficially become Hobbit Day.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so like a few of our members really get into it, like no holds barred, like cooking like 8-course meals in
Oh
full
my God.
costume. And just like,
Wow.
you know, if we had like tried to like schedule it from the start, there's no way people would have gotten that into it. But just because
Mm,
like people got themselves excited about it, it's really turned into something.
dang. How often is Hobbit Day? And then why is it not every day?
It is once a year. It's actually an international holiday.
Okay.
Um,
Oh,
I
no
didn't
way.
know that, but like, yeah, if you
What?
go to like Hobbiton in New Zealand, on Hobbit Day, they do a big party as well. So
Oh my God.
it's sometime in September. Yeah.
Dude, we gotta check that out. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Are there any like long-term vision plans you have for Makerhouse or the group collectively has?
Nothing like official. I've
Hmm.
been vaguely entertaining the idea of like buying another plot of land nearby and like building a maker
Yeah,
house too.
nice.
Um, but yeah, no official plans.
Yeah. Are there any relationships kind of set up between Makerhouse and the community, or is that more on like an individual basis, just whoever's there?
Yeah, so we have done an artist in residence or a maker in residence program,
Hmm.
and that has started to make some good community ties. We'll have these artists and makers come in from around the world for a month or two, build something
Yeah.
cool, and then as part of the residency requirement is like that you share what you create. So
Hmm.
uh, a lot of them will partner with a local organization like an art gallery to do a gallery show. And so through that we have started to kind of get connected into the maker and art scene in Pittsburgh, and that's been pretty cool.
Dang, I love that. We want to do something. We're actually doing this right now. We're at a state where we're volunteering on a farm right now. But we do want to do something like what we're doing in the future, which is like having people come and help us on our farm in exchange for like, stay and food. Um, but yeah, I do want to get, things going where we are, tethered to our nearby community and in a lot of different ways. But that is something I've never heard of, like having a space. I mean, I'm sure it's unique to you because you have all these tools available, but
And it
yeah,
doesn't have to
having,
be like I got this idea because a couple of years ago, we had one of these like grad student people who was like, I'm definitely going to move out in May. And then we
mhm,
found like another awesome candidate, but they were like, I'm going to move in August. I'm like, it's stupid to have a room
mhm,
empty for a couple of months. Like, you know,
yeah,
um, but like then I did a lot of research into artist residencies, and frankly, most of them don't provide much. It's like basically a room,
okay,
usually in like a vaguely interesting spot, but like, you know, I think we're one of the only ones I've seen where it's like, and it comes with a whole workshop.
yeah, yeah. That's got to be a big perk for someone who's looking for. What kind of artists are you usually hosting? Is it just a crazy variety or?
when when we review them, we prioritize people who want to use the tools in the space. So if they're
Mhm,
like a writer or a painter, it's like, you're not really going to be using the blacksmithing setup.
right.
Um, we also prioritize, I'd say, like people midway in their career. Like,
Mm,
you know, we we're not going to add anything useful to the career of, a super successful artist, but we also want someone who has some experience, is clearly self-guided, kind of knows what they want to make, and so has like done some things like this before.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Getting towards the end, what would you say is like something you would have done differently with starting this whole process, if anything?
Hmm. Um, Two thoughts. One, I would have done it earlier. I don't know why I waited so long.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um, yeah, because especially structuring it as like a house with a mortgage, um, it like especially in a place like Pittsburgh that's like consistently rated one of the most affordable places. Like it's
Mm.
like you can especially you can get like assistance as a first time homeowner and stuff. So like I really could have started the process several years earlier, and that just would have been
Yeah.
several years of more awesome. And then the second one is in building the house, I was obviously limited to like the size of the land. So I couldn't have
Mhm.
really gotten bigger. But what I could have potentially done was structure it as two separate units, as
Mm.
like a duplex. And I'm actually still divided on this. I'm not sure if it would have been better or worse, but
Yeah.
um, like I could imagine like one duplex being the like artsy entertainment place with the home theater and the big kitchen, and then the other duplex being the like really makery, like it's the one connected
Mm.
to the workshop. And
Yeah.
then maybe that would have kind of simplified community things a bit more because that's like a little bit smaller. But then on the other hand, you wouldn't get as much cross pollination. You'd be like in two groups of three rather than one group of six. So
Right.
I think it would be like super amazing to like build a whole village where you have
Yeah.
enough land that like you have like 10 or 20 people and all of them have their own houses, but then you have like a central community building.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that would be way more expensive at the very least because building one large house is much cheaper per square foot than a bunch of
Right.
smaller houses. But it also kind of goes in a way against the principles of like energy efficiency and
I was
economic.
about to bring that up. I was like,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that? Because you have like 10 times the amount of resources used, or if you have
yeah,
20
and
people, a lot more.
yeah, because like by being in a city, there's this secondary effect of your lifestyle is also more efficient. Like you can walk and bike and take the bus. Whereas
Right.
if you're making this community in the middle of nowhere and it's like a 20-mile drive to anything, then like boom, you just blew through your carbon footprint even with an
Yeah.
EV.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. It's kind of counterintuitive, huh? Like being in the city, you can actually have a way lower carbon footprint because you can get more people into one space and have it be, more affordable, and also your travel, transportation is super limited. You can share the same resources. Yeah, I don't think I ever thought about it like that.
but
That's pretty
my
interesting.
mind was blown in this process when I learned about the LEED certification. Are you familiar with it?
No, I don't think so.
I forget what it stands for, but it's LEED,
Hmm.
and like more energy efficient buildings have like gold or platinum
Yeah.
ones. But actually, part of their certification process is not just the building. It's not just how insulated it is, or like how much water reclamation it is. It's also where is the building? Is the
Oh,
building transit accessible? And you literally get points for that, which makes sense because if you're thinking about
yeah.
like the overall footprint, it's like, yeah, if people have to drive way out of their way to get to your office building, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. These are things I didn't really consider, but that really does make a ton of sense to think through that before. If being ecologically friendly is
yeah.
important, which
And
it is to me.
yeah, and there are in some ways to offset this, like, if you're more remote, then like maybe part of the community is like growing your own food,
Yeah.
where like, that reduces the number of trips people have to make and like, reduces the amount of like herbicides and pesticides being put into the environment if it's like more of a
Right.
organic permaculture thing. So, I think it's tricky because not everyone wants to live in a city. And so
Hmm.
there's still this opportunity for like if someone wants to live in the countryside, you can probably still build a countryside community that's more efficient for them. Like, what if you have like one electric vehicle for the whole community you use rather than like everyone in the typical suburb mindset has like two SUVs?
Right. Right.
Uh, so
Yeah.
there's still things that you can do that have a positive impact.
Yeah, I have talked to a couple of communities where they do that, where they really have like one car for like, 7 or 8 different people, and um, are very good about just not having so much attachment for each individual. And yeah, I think that goes a long way as well. That's good.
Yeah, like we have a
Um,
shared car at Makerhouse, and we just have like a
mhm.
shared Google Calendar. So you just reserve the car, and
Yeah.
it works. You know, sharing it amongst three people, like
Has that ever caused like major issues? Or I'm guessing like if something you see it in the calendar, you'd be like, just bring it up to someone. Or
yeah, and you know, I think that really the only rule was like uh, don't book it for more than like a week. You know, like if you're gonna do like a reservation.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, people stuck by that, and I guess also living in a city, like if the car was busy, you had other options.
True.
Uh, so you know, I think if you're in the countryside, you know, maybe one car is like not enough. Maybe you need like n+1, so like
Hmm.
two cars for like 7 people, and then that
Yeah.
way um, it's a bit more resilient. But you know, even 2 cars for 7 people is like way better than like the U.S. average. So
Right. Yeah. 14, right? Is the average. Yeah, it's insane. Um, Man, interesting thing you got going on over there. I got just one more question for you,
go for it.
which is, what advice would you give? And I know you got a unique situation, but just in general for people who are trying to start, either a co-housing situation or just living intentionally, what would be some of your biggest pieces of advice for that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say don't be afraid. It's really awesome, and it's you
Mm,
know absolutely worth it. Like there will be hard parts, but like it's hard to like live on your own anyway. So like I don't know if life is gonna be hard and you're gonna have to do chores and maintenance and like deal with people, you might as well you know do it the way you want it.
mm-hmm,
And then also think about what is important to you and like disregard the rest. So like for me, I really wanted this community. I really wanted it to be eco-friendly. I could have gone down a huge rabbit hole of like the like cooperative ownership model. Like in Pennsylvania, like there's not like a good legal structure. So I could have like put a ton of money into like hiring lawyers and like freeing out corporations and like having to screen for members who had like enough money to like buy in. But I was like, you know, that's not important to me. I just want to live with friends and make stuff and like have a low eco footprint. So like
mm-hmm.
you know, I'll just do like the standard home ownership model and like, you know, fight that battle a different day.
Nice. That's great. Great advice. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or
Just do it. The world needs more
just
intentional
do
communities.
it? Shia LaBeouf, baby, he said it all. Awesome. Man, I really appreciate your time and you know your willingness to share your experience. It's really cool of you. And yeah, even though I think we're going to be doing something different, I think that everyone's experience is valuable to hear, and it's also really really super cool what you guys are doing over there. So thank you for your
Yeah,
time.